I want to share with you today some thoughts on the subject of sin, and the reality is we're all steeped in sin from birth. The Bible teaches us that. And as followers of Jesus, even though we've been ultimately set free from sin through the cross, the reality is that day by day we still continue to struggle with sin. We may want very much to pursue a life of holiness, but that goal continues to somehow elude us in our ongoing battle with sin. And some sin we can be quite unaware of because we're so immersed in it in our culture. So things like self-centeredness and pride, greed, we may not even be aware of just how broken we are until the Lord reveals it to us. But then there's other sin that we're painfully aware of because of the deep sense of guilt we carry when we fall. So things like outbursts of anger, where we lash out, often at the ones we love the most, or things like succumbing to temptations of addictions of various kinds, food, work, alcohol, sexual addictions that satisfy for a moment but then leave us feeling empty inside. Well, as Christians, our response to sin is really important, and there are a couple of dangers I'd like to highlight today. And the first is that we become too blasé about our sin. We start to rationalize it. Well, I'm not as bad as other people, or what I'm doing is not really hurting anyone else. And besides, I know that God will forgive me. His grace is sufficient. Well, those can be rationalizations for behavior that deep down we know is unacceptable behavior. Yes, His grace is sufficient, but it's a dangerous thing to presume upon the grace of God. Paul presents this argument in Romans chapter 6. He says, "So should we sin all the more, so that the grace and forgiveness of God can abound all the more?" Absolutely not, says Paul. We need to actively be pursuing a life of holiness. Sin matters to God, not because He wants to spoil our fun, but because He knows that sin harms our relationships with Him and with one another, sometimes in ways that we can't see. The second danger is that we become so overwhelmed with our own sinfulness that it threatens to destroy us. And this is a particular danger for those caught in cycles of addiction. The cycle goes like this: failure, confession, forgiveness. Failure, confession, forgiveness. And for some people it can feel like a hamster wheel of failure that causes people to feel such a deep unworthiness that they start to despair and start to feel as though they're actually beyond redemption. Well, no one is beyond redemption. If we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins, to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. What a great promise that is. And Paul understood this second danger very well. He says in Romans 7, "What a wretched man am I! Who shall rescue me from this body that is subject to death?" Or the Message puts it this way. Let me read this. "I've tried everything. Nothing helps. I'm at the end of my rope. Is there no one who can do anything for me?" The answer, thank God, is that Jesus Christ can and does. He acted to set things right in this life of contradictions where I want to serve God with all my heart and mind, but I'm pulled by the influence of sin to do something totally different. So what's your response to sin? Your own sin? Are you too blasé? Doesn't matter. I know I'll be forgiven. Or are you caught in that hamster wheel of failure, in danger of being crushed by your own brokenness, in danger of spiraling into some sort of depression, of despair? God has better things in store for you than you currently are experiencing. He loves you. He wants the best for you. He wants you to be free, actually. Press into Him. Confess your sin. Receive His forgiveness and pursue a life of daily dependence on Him. And have a great week.